It's granular gold for farmers. Canadian potash is used in fields across America. The U.S. tariffs adding another cost for those in a sector where there is little stability.
You would still obviously have to have Canadian potash. And so that import tariff would just be something that would have to be absorbed.
Potash is a group of minerals and chemicals that contain potassium. Its main use is in fertilizers.
Canada's been very bad to us on trade, but now Canada's going to have to start paying up.
But data shows it will be Americans who pay the brunt of the tariffs. According to Natural Resources Canada, we are the world's largest producer of potash with reserves up.
Canada was just hit with tough trade rules, but then something shocking happened. American farmers pushed back so hard that the plan had to be softened almost right away. That is a big win for Canada, while the United States was forced to step back and protect its own farmers from the pain caused by its own decision. The Trump administration's broad 25% tariffs on Canadian goods came into effect. Within days, the political response from American agricultural states was so intense and so specific that the administration signed an executive order modifying one of its own tariff decisions within the same week. President Trump signed an executive order lowering the tariff on Canadian potash that does not comply with USMCA from 25% to 10%, a documented, published presidential action that went into effect days after the original tariff schedule was announced. The Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association, one of the country's largest agricultural industry organizations, publicly praised the modification as a positive first step in ongoing efforts to secure a stable, affordable supply of fertilizers. The phrase positive first step means the full 25% tariff had to be reversed. American agriculture had applied pressure. The administration had responded. The entire sequence took less than 48 hours. The mineral at the center of that sequence is potash. Most Americans have never encountered the word outside a chemistry class. Every American farmer who grows corn, wheat, soybeans, cotton, or virtually any major crop depends on it every planting season. Potash potassium chloride in its most common commercial form is one of the 3 primary macronutrients that modern fertilizer delivers to agricultural soil, alongside nitrogen and phosphorus. Potassium governs root development, water regulation, disease resistance, and the movement of sugars within plant tissue. Without adequate potassium in the soil, crop yields fall. The magnitude of that decline is not minor. Severe potassium deficiency can reduce corn yields by 20 to 30% in a single growing season. At that scale, the economic damage reaches American farm households directly through reduced revenue on every acre planted. Canada supplies approximately 80 to 85% of all potash imported into the United States. The United States imports more than 90% of the potash it uses domestically. Canada is therefore the source of roughly 80% of all potash American agriculture applies to its fields in any given year. The only other major global producers at commercial scale are Russia and Belarus, both operating under Western sanctions frameworks that restrict their ability to reliably supply the American market. The United States has minimal domestic potash production, concentrated in small operations in New Mexico and Utah that collectively supply a fraction of what American agriculture requires. There is no short-term alternative supplier. There is no warehouse of domestic reserves. The supply chain for American food production runs directly through Saskatchewan. Canada operates 11 active potash mines, all located in Saskatchewan. They employ approximately 5,400 workers directly and account for 11% of the province's GDP. 4 companies control all Canadian production: Nutrien, the world's largest potash producer, the US-based Mosaic Company, Compass Minerals, and Germany's K+S Group, which operates the Bethune mine in Saskatchewan. BHP's Jansen mine in Saskatchewan is currently under construction and projected to increase Canadian production capacity by approximately 40% once fully operational around 2029. Canada's potash dominance is not a temporary market condition. It reflects the geology of the Williston Basin underlying Saskatchewan, one of the largest and highest quality potash deposits anywhere on Earth, combined with decades of industrial investment in extraction and processing. Infrastructure that no other jurisdiction has replicated. The fertilizer industry's response to the original 25% tariff announcement was rapid and numerically specific. RBC Economics calculated the impact directly. A 25% tariff on Canadian potash would add approximately 50 to 75 US dollars per ton to input costs for American farmers. Potash application rates for corn production typically run between 100 and 200 pounds of K2O per acre, depending on soil conditions and yield targets. At a $50 to $75 per ton cost increase across millions of American corn acres, the aggregate additional cost to American agriculture from a single season of tariff-inflated potash pricing runs into billions of dollars borne by American farmers, not by Canadian producers. The Fertilizer Institute, the leading US industry lobby representing fertilizer manufacturers, distributors, and retailers, made its position explicit in public statements during the tariff debate. The organization stated that 85% of US potash imports come from Canada, that potash is an irreplaceable component of modern agricultural production, and that potash deposits are geographically specific, with mine development in the United States being time-intensive and costly. That statement is an acknowledgement in plain language that there is no rapid domestic supply response available. Building a new potash mine in the United States, from initial exploration through permitting, environmental review, shaft sinking, production infrastructure, and initial output takes a minimum of 7 to 10 years under favorable regulatory conditions. The tariff problem exists now. The domestic mine solution, even if it existed, would take a decade to deliver. Josh Linville, Vice President of Fertilizer at StoneX, articulated the specific dilemma the tariff created. The problem is, if we start to upset Canada, where else around the world do you start to go? Our second biggest supplier? That's Russia. That statement was made in the context of industry analysis during the tariff dispute and captures the supply chain logic that American farm state senators had already communicated to the White House in the days between the original tariff announcement and the executive order modification. Russia is under sanctions. Belarus, whose state-owned potash producer Belaruskali is the other major alternative supplier, had its sanctions partially lifted by the Trump administration in a separate diplomatic arrangement. But the volume and reliability of Belarusian supply reaching American markets at scale in the near term remained uncertain. Canada was, and remains, the only supplier that could realistically serve American agricultural potash demand without introducing geopolitical or logistical risk. Prime Minister Carney stated publicly that his government would not use energy or critical minerals as explicit leverage in bilateral trade negotiations, a position that drew significant attention precisely because it acknowledged the existence of that leverage. The distinction between formally deploying a resource as a negotiating weapon and simply allowing the market consequences of a tariff dispute to make the supply dependency visible is a narrow one. When American farm groups, fertilizer distributors, and agricultural state senators identified the 25% potash tariff's consequences within days of its announcement and communicated the scale of the problem to the White House, the potash leverage operated without any Canadian government action at all. The resources geography did the work. The executive order Trump signed, reducing the non-USMCA compliant potash tariff from 25% to 10%, is documented and published by the White House. The IFCA's public statement praising the modification as a positive first step is on the record. The full timeline, original tariff announcement, agricultural industry response, White House executive order modification ran in less than 48 hours. The most powerful government in the world adjusted its own trade policy on a specific commodity because American farmers could not plant their crops without it. Canada did not threaten anything. Canada simply produces 80% of the potash that American agriculture requires. And the arithmetic of that dependency does not change based on who is sitting in the White House or what tariff rate is published in the Federal Register. BHP's Jansen mine, once fully operational around 2029, will increase Canadian production capacity by approximately 40%. That expansion will not reduce Canada's dominance in global potash markets. It will extend further into the decade when global food security pressures, population growth in South and Southeast Asia, and the decarbonization of agriculture are all expected to increase global potash demand simultaneously. Canada's position in that market is not a temporary negotiating advantage. It is a geological and industrial reality that will outlast every trade dispute, every tariff schedule, and every executive order.